You've been eating cheese your whole life, and you probably never imagined that the right kinds could actually help you hold on to your strength as you get older, but they can. And today, I'm going to show you exactly which ones to choose and why it matters more than most people realize. By the end of this video, you're going to know exactly which 3 cheeses can help your body hold on to muscle, or even start rebuilding it after 60. You're going to understand why this matters so deeply for your independence, and you're going to have simple, practical ways to get more of these into your everyday meals without any fuss. I'm Grace. I'm 91 years old. I still live in my own home. I still cook my own meals. And I still walk to my mailbox every single morning. And one of the quiet little secrets behind staying strong at my age? It starts with what's on your plate. Specifically today, what's in your cheese drawer. Stick with me because near the end, I'll share the one thing most people over 70 get completely wrong when they're trying to keep their muscle strength. And it's not what you'd expect. It surprised me too. Let's get started. First, let's talk about what's actually happening to our bodies. Now, I want to spend just a few minutes here because I think this part gets skipped over too quickly. And when you understand what's happening, everything else makes so much more sense. There's a word your doctor may have mentioned, or maybe you've read about it. Sarcopenia. That's a medical term, but all it really means is this: the slow, gradual loss of muscle that happens as we age. It starts earlier than most of us think, around our mid-30s actually, but it speeds up after 60. And by the time we're in our 70s and 80s, many of us are losing muscle faster than our bodies can replace it. Now, here's what that looks like in real life. It's not just about looking thinner or feeling weaker at the gym. Sarcopenia shows up as the staircase that gets a little harder every year, the jar you can't quite open anymore. Getting up from a chair and needing to use your arms to push yourself, feeling unsteady on your feet, losing your balance. That's what muscle loss looks like day to day. And here's the part that matters most to me, and I think to you too. Muscle is one of the biggest factors in whether we stay independent as we get older. The stronger our muscles, the more we can do for ourselves, the safer we are, the longer we live in our own homes, on our own terms. I thought about that a lot when I turned 80. I looked at my own mother, who lost her strength quite quickly in her late 70s and needed a lot of help, and I said to myself, Grace, you're going to fight this, not with fancy equipment or expensive programs, but with smart choices, day by day. One of those smart choices? Protein, specifically the right kind of protein, eaten at the right times. You see, our muscles are made of protein, and as we age, our bodies become less efficient at using the protein we eat to repair and rebuild muscle tissue. So we actually need more protein than we did when we were younger, not less, more. And cheese, good real cheese, can be one of the most delicious and practical ways to get that protein in, especially for those of us who don't always have big appetites. Before I go on, I want to say something important. Please talk to your doctor or your registered dietitian before you make big changes to your diet, especially if you have kidney disease, heart disease, high blood pressure, or any other condition where protein or sodium intake might need to be managed carefully. I'm sharing what has worked for me and what the research supports, but your doctor knows your specific situation. Always listen to your body and your medical team first. Alright, now let's talk about cheese. Why cheese is such a good protein source for older adults. Before I get to the 3 specific cheeses, I want to explain why cheese in particular is worth paying attention to. Protein is not all the same. Different foods give us protein in different amounts and in different forms. And not all protein is equally useful to our aging bodies. What scientists have found, and this is really interesting, is that our bodies need a certain amount of protein in one sitting to actually trigger muscle building. That threshold is a little higher for older adults than for younger people. Some researchers talk about needing somewhere around 25 to 40 grams of protein at a meal to really get that muscle building process going. Now, that's not a hard rule. Everybody is different. But the general idea is that a little sprinkle of protein here and there may not be enough. We need meaningful amounts. Cheese is dense. A small amount gives you a real hit of protein without having to eat a huge meal. And when your appetite isn't always what it used to be, that matters. Cheese also contains something called leucine. Now, leucine is an amino acid. Think of it as one of the building blocks of protein. And the leucine in particular has been shown to be especially effective at triggering muscle protein synthesis. That means it helps send the signal to your body to actually start building and repairing muscle. Dairy foods like cheese are naturally rich in leucine. That's one of the reasons dairy protein is considered so useful for older adults trying to preserve muscle. And one more thing, cheese is easy. You don't have to cook it. You don't have to prepare it. You can add it to almost anything. For those of us who are cooking for one, or who have days when the kitchen feels like too much, cheese is a protein source that requires almost no effort. Now, the 3 cheeses, let's get into it. Cheese. Number 1, cottage cheese. I want to start with cottage cheese because I think it is one of the most underrated foods for people over 60. It's humble, it doesn't look fancy, but nutritionally it is outstanding. A single cup of low-fat cottage cheese contains roughly 25 to 28 grams of protein. That is substantial. That is, all by itself, close to or at the amount researchers say we need in one sitting to really stimulate muscle building. All from 1 cup of a soft, easy-to-eat food. And cottage cheese is gentle. You don't have to chew it much. For anyone dealing with dental issues, dry mouth, or difficulty with harder foods, that's a real blessing. Now, cottage cheese also contains casein protein. Casein is the slow-digesting kind of protein found in dairy. What that means is your body absorbs and uses it gradually over several hours rather than all at once. Some research suggests this slow release is actually quite good for muscle maintenance, especially overnight. Some people eat a small serving of cottage cheese before bed for exactly this reason, to give their muscles a steady supply of amino acids during sleep, when the body does a lot of its repair work. I started eating cottage cheese regularly about 10 years ago. I mix it with a little fruit, sometimes strawberries, sometimes sliced peaches from a can drained of syrup. Sometimes I add a drizzle of honey, and sometimes I eat it savory, with a few cherry tomatoes and a little black pepper. Both ways are delicious, and both ways take me about 2 minutes to prepare. Let's pause here for just a second. I want you to think about your typical breakfast or lunch. Is there protein in it? Meaningful protein? If the honest answer is not really, or I'm not sure, then cottage cheese might be one of the simplest upgrades you can make starting tomorrow morning. You don't have to eat a whole cup if that's too much. Start with half a cup. Add something you love. See how you feel. Small steps count. Now, a word about sodium. Some cottage cheeses are higher in sodium than others. If you're watching your salt intake, and many of us are for good reason, look for a low sodium version, or just check the label. The sodium content can vary quite a bit between brands, so it's worth taking a look. And one more thing to know. Not all cottage cheese has the same amount of protein. Full fat, low fat, and non-fat versions vary. I generally go for low fat, which tends to have the most protein per calorie. But again, talk to your doctor or dietitian about what's right for you specifically. All right, cottage cheese is number 1. Let's move to number 2, and this one might surprise you a little. Cheese number 2, ricotta cheese. Now, you might think of ricotta as something you only see in lasagna at holidays. But I want to change how you think about it, because ricotta is a genuinely wonderful food for older adults, and most people aren't eating nearly enough of it. A half cup of part-skim ricotta gives you about 14 grams of protein. That's good on its own, but combine it with other protein-containing foods at the same meal, and it adds up nicely. And the texture of ricotta is one of the softest, creamiest, most luxurious textures of any cheese. It melts in your mouth. But here's what I find especially interesting about ricotta, and something I didn't know for a long time. Ricotta is made differently from most other cheeses. Many cheeses are made from the curds of milk, the solid parts. Ricotta is traditionally made from the whey, the liquid that's left over, and whey protein is actually one of the most studied and highly regarded proteins for muscle building. Whey protein is absorbed quickly by the body. That fast absorption can be a real advantage because it gets amino acids, those building blocks, into your bloodstream and to your muscles relatively quickly. This is one reason whey protein powders are so popular with people who are trying to build muscle. But here's the thing, you can get that same whey protein naturally, deliciously from ricotta, without buying any supplements. Now, I know some of you may be thinking about cholesterol or fat, and I hear you. Ricotta does contain fat, though part-skim versions are considerably lighter. If saturated fat is a concern for you, and your doctor has spoken with you about your cholesterol, then choose the part-skim version, use it in moderate amounts, and balance it within your overall diet. This is another good conversation to have with your healthcare provider. How do I eat ricotta? Oh, let me count the ways. I spread it on a piece of whole grain toast in the morning with a drizzle of olive oil and a pinch of salt. It is heavenly. Feels like something you'd get at a nice cafe. I stir it into scrambled eggs while they're cooking. It makes the eggs incredibly creamy and adds protein without you even noticing. I mix it with a little honey and vanilla and eat it as dessert with some berries on top. It tastes rich and indulgent, but it's genuinely nutritious. And yes, I do use it in cooking too. Stuffed into pasta shells, layered in casseroles, stirred into soups to make them creamy without heavy cream. Ricotta is versatile in a way that not many foods can match. And the softness of it, that smooth, gentle texture, makes it wonderful for people who find some foods difficult to eat comfortably. Let me ask you something directly. Is there a meal you make regularly where you could stir in a spoonful or two of ricotta? I'd be willing to bet there is. Even just adding it to your morning scrambled eggs 3 or 4 times a week would make a real difference in your protein intake. Coming up next, I want to tell you about the third cheese on our list. And this one is a little harder and a little stronger tasting than the first two, but it is a protein powerhouse. And I think you're going to love what I tell you about it. Cheese number 3, Parmesan. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Parmesan? Isn't that just something you shake on pasta? Oh, it is so much more than that. And I want to make the case for Parmesan cheese today in a way that might genuinely change how you think about it. Real Parmesan, and I mean the aged kind. The kind that comes in a block or is freshly grated, not the powdered kind in the green canister, is one of the most protein-dense foods that exists. And I mean that seriously. A single ounce of genuine aged Parmesan contains about 10 to 11 grams of protein. Now that doesn't sound like a lot at first, but an ounce is not very much. It's maybe a small handful of grated cheese, a generous sprinkle, and it packs more protein per ounce than almost any other cheese you'll find. Here's another remarkable thing about Parmesan. It is extremely low in lactose. Lactose is the natural sugar found in milk. Many people, as they get older, find that their bodies don't handle lactose as well as they used to. You might notice some bloating, some discomfort, or other digestive issues after eating certain dairy foods. This is very common, but aged cheeses like Parmesan, and I mean properly aged, at least a year, have had most of their lactose broken down during the aging process. By the time Parmesan has been aged for 18 months or 2 years, the lactose content is extremely low, almost negligible. Many people who cannot comfortably eat milk, yogurt, or soft cheeses find they can eat Parmesan without any problem at all. So, if you've avoided cheese because of lactose sensitivity, Parmesan is worth trying. Of course, go slowly, try a small amount first, and pay attention to how your body responds. Now, The aging process does something else to Parmesan that I find fascinating. When cheese is aged for a long time, the proteins in it begin to break down into something called free amino acids. This is a very different state from protein that hasn't been aged. And some researchers believe these free amino acids may actually be even more readily available to the body, meaning your body may be able to use them for muscle repair and building even more efficiently than protein from younger, unaged cheeses. This is an area where the science is still developing, so I don't want to overstate it. But it's an interesting and promising direction. What we know for certain is that Parmesan is protein-dense, low lactose, and extremely flavorful, which means a little goes a long way, and flavor matters. Here's something I've noticed in my own life and talking with friends my age. When food tastes wonderful, we eat more of it. When it's bland or uninspiring, we eat less. We skip meals. We snack on things that don't nourish us. So adding a cheese that makes food more delicious is also a strategy for eating better overall. I keep a small block of Parmesan in my refrigerator at all times. I grate it fresh over my eggs in the morning. I stir it into soups. I add it to roasted vegetables. I eat a small piece of it with apple slices as an afternoon snack. It has such a rich, savory, deeply satisfying flavor that just a small amount feels like a treat. And here's a tip. Buy it in a block and grate it yourself when you need it. It stays fresh much longer that way, up to a few months wrapped tightly in the refrigerator. Pre-grated Parmesan in a bag loses flavor and dries out much faster. How much protein do you actually need? A simple guide. I want to spend a few minutes here because I think a lot of confusion lives in this question, and the confusion can lead people to not eating enough protein, which is one of the biggest mistakes older adults make. And yes, this is going to be the payoff I promised you at the start. Here's what most people over 70 get wrong when they're trying to keep their muscle strength. They focus on eating more protein overall. They think, I'll have a little more chicken at dinner, a little more fish on weekends, and they feel good about that. But here's the problem. Research tells us that our bodies can only use so much protein for muscle building at any one sitting. Eating 70 or 80 grams of protein all at once, like a huge dinner, doesn't mean your muscles get all of that. A lot of it gets used for energy instead, or processed out of the body. The muscle building signal gets maxed out after a certain point. What the research actually supports, especially for older adults, is distributing protein evenly across meals throughout the day. 3 meals with meaningful protein at each one. Not saving it all for dinner, not skipping breakfast and having a protein-heavy lunch. So the goal is not just how much protein you eat in a day. It's how you spread it out. Most current guidance for older adults, and again, please check with your own doctor or a registered dietitian because individual needs vary, generally suggests somewhere between 1.2 and 1.6 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight per day. For someone who weighs about 68 kilograms, which is around 150 pounds, that works out to somewhere between roughly 80 and 110 grams of protein per day. Now, those numbers might feel abstract, so let me make them concrete. If you're aiming for around 90 grams of protein a day and you're spreading it across 3 meals, you're looking for about 30 grams of protein per meal. That's the target at each sitting to really engage that muscle building process effectively. What does 30 grams look like using our cheeses? 1 cup of cottage cheese gets you about 27 grams on its own. Add an egg alongside it and you're there. Half a cup of ricotta with 2 eggs stirred in gets you close to 25 to 30 grams, depending on the eggs. An ounce of Parmesan plus a couple of eggs, or a small serving of another protein food gets you there too. These are not complicated meals. They are breakfast, they are lunch, they are snacks that become small meals. and they are absolutely achievable. The key is to stop thinking of protein as only a dinner food. Breakfast and lunch count just as much. In fact, some researchers think breakfast protein may be especially important because many older adults eat very little protein in the morning, just toast or cereal or fruit, and then wonder why the muscle building process isn't being triggered effectively. Start your day with protein. That single shift can make a meaningful difference. A few more tips to support everything we've talked about. I want to add 3 short practical notes before we wrap up, because cheese and protein are powerful tools, but they work best alongside a few other things. Movement matters. You've heard me talk about this before, and I'll keep saying it because it's true. Eating protein helps your muscles rebuild, but muscles need a reason to rebuild. That reason is movement. When you move your body, even gentle movement, even a walk around the block, even doing some light exercises sitting in a chair, you create the stimulus that tells your muscles to grow back stronger. Protein feeds the process. Movement starts it. You need both. I am not telling you to join a gym or start lifting heavy weights. I'm saying that gentle, consistent movement every day, walking, stretching, some light resistance work if your doctor approves, combined with adequate protein, gives your muscles the best possible signal that they need to stay strong. Second point, hydration. Our bodies need water to process protein properly. Many of us, as we get older, feel less thirsty than we used to, even when we actually need fluids. If you're increasing your protein intake, make sure you're drinking enough water throughout the day. It helps your kidneys process the protein and keeps everything working smoothly. Third point, vitamin D. There's a strong connection between vitamin D and muscle function. Many older adults are low in vitamin D, often without knowing it. Ask your doctor to check your vitamin D level if they haven't recently. Some dairy foods are fortified with vitamin D, and real sunlight, even just 15 minutes a day when it's safe, supports your body's production of it naturally. It's worth knowing your levels. Let's do a quick recap together. I know we've covered a lot today, and I want to make sure you leave here with everything you need clearly in your mind. We talked about sarcopenia, the gradual muscle loss that comes with aging, and how it affects our independence, our balance, and our ability to do everyday things. And we talked about why protein, specifically the leucine-rich protein in dairy, is one of the most effective tools we have for fighting back. We talked about cottage cheese, that quiet, humble, incredibly protein-rich food that gives you close to 28 grams of protein in a cup, absorbs slowly to feed your muscles for hours, and is one of the softest and easiest foods to eat. We talked about ricotta, that creamy, versatile, whey protein-rich cheese that works in sweet dishes and savory ones, feels luxurious, and is gentle enough for anyone with chewing or swallowing difficulties. And we talked about Parmesan, that aged, intensely flavored, incredibly protein-dense cheese that is low in lactose, possibly easier for the body to use because of its aged protein structure, and so flavorful that a small amount goes a very long way. We talked about the mistake most people over 70 make, focusing on total protein but not spreading it across 3 meals. And we talked about the goal, meaningful protein at breakfast, at lunch, and at dinner to give your muscles the signal they need all day long. And I gave you the simplest possible approach, not a diet overhaul, but small, delicious upgrades. Spread ricotta on your toast. Add cottage cheese alongside your fruit. Grate Parmesan over your soup. These are not hardships. These are pleasures. Before I let you go, I want to say something from the heart. Staying strong after 60 is not just about looking good or even just about feeling good. It's about protecting your freedom, your ability to live in your own home, to care for yourself, to do the things you love, to be there fully for the people you love. I am 91 years old. I am still here. still cooking my own meals, still walking every morning, still making choices every day that help me stay that way. And I want that for you too, not because aging isn't real. It absolutely is, but because so much is still within our control. What we eat matters. How we move matters. The choices we make in the kitchen matter. You're not too old. There is no point at which it's too late to start taking better care of your muscles. Research has shown that people in their 80s and even their 90s can rebuild muscle and improve strength when they get enough protein and move their bodies. That is remarkable. And it is true. So please start wherever you are. Pick one of these cheeses. Make one small upgrade this week, just one, and see how you feel. Because you deserve to feel strong. You deserve to stay independent. And I believe with everything in me that you can.